Okay, well, I guess it's 2 o'clock, so I still a little bit after 2. Yeah, I just wanted to
Travel
shut that door.
mansions and
Thank you all, but David is gonna start us off, and we've agreed to sort of take turns, and we'll see how that works. We didn't practice, we've done this before, but we didn't practice this. I did wanna say that, what was it I wanted to say? We've agreed that our memories may be different. You know, it's been 20 years, and we've agreed not to correct each other on an anchorage or a date, it doesn't matter.
Liz,
So,
I think we have to use a mic.
okay, well, I don't know where it is. Okay.
It's all ready to go, just speak into it.
This?
No. This.
Oh, good.
It's got one that you don't hold, you have to hold, or, she's got.
What?
Okay, probably better.
Testing?
Yeah, you know there's a color of the year, it's on.
No, wait.
Oh, it's on.
yeah.
All right, I'll just backtrack. It's been 20 years since we did this at least, and we've agreed, and practiced for a while, not to correct each other on anchorages or dates or any memories, because they may be different, that's okay. And so
The facts
David,
may not be true.
yeah, we could say anything and you would just believe it. It's fun to share, we've done this before, so it really is fun, it brings back a lot of memories for us. David's gonna start, we're gonna kind of just go back and forth. If you have questions, we're happy to try to answer them. And he's gonna start off how this whole thing started as a midlife crisis and a magazine article.
You've forgotten already, but you don't get to start. The article I read about Annapolis Sailing School.
Yes, okay, I was gonna start, but not reference the,
Here.
okay.
No, you're not, yeah, just wait, say that part first before you start this.
We had just moved to Newcastle, Delaware, which is up the Delaware River, south
They
of.
speak into the mic.
We had just moved to Newcastle, Delaware, which is south of Philadelphia on the Delaware River. It's a very historic town. As a matter of fact, the whole center of the town is on the National Historic Register. And it was first settled in 1540 or something like that. So we stumbled on that and we went there, and then Lynn read an article in a magazine.
We used to get Mid-Atlantic magazine,
Mid-Atlantic.
which told you what to do in Delaware and wherever.
And she saw an article about learning to sail in Annapolis, at the Annapolis Sailing School. And she thought, boy, that sounds like fun. So we did it. And of course, after the first lesson, we had to stop on the way home in marinas and look at boats. So a couple of years later, a couple that became very good friends of ours had been transferred from Seattle to Wilmington, Delaware, which is right next to Newcastle. They had been planning since high school to sail around the world. And the company transferred them with their 50-foot sailboat to Wilmington. And Lynn met Janie, and I met Phil, and one day they used to have really nice, really big sailing expositions in Atlantic City, boat shows. So they said, oh, let's go down there. Well, it's like when you go to a humane society to look at puppies. And sure enough, we came home proud owners of a 28-foot sailboat. And that's when we started sailing in Chesapeake Bay. And a year later, we ended up moving down the bay closer to Annapolis on the eastern shore. And we bought another boat, a bigger boat. And that disease is called big boatitis. You buy one boat, so we got a 34-foot boat. And then, probably 4 years later, we started seriously thinking about, in the future, moving aboard.
Everybody on the
And
Chesapeake.
everybody
talks
Yeah,
about
and it's like,
living.
oh, you know, we're gonna, when we retire or whatever, we're gonna move aboard. Well, we found a boat that met our criteria for cruising in Florida, in St. Pete. And we had it trucked up to the bay, and we sailed it for a few years. And all of a sudden, and I was running an office in Philadelphia for a big company, and they were bought by a bigger company. And the bigger company had an office similar to mine on the other side of Philadelphia, so they didn't need my office. And so my job was eliminated. And it was your promotion.
You were 53.
I was 53. And like I say, we had the boat. Now we got the time, and Lynn was the one who really pushed it. And, you know, I could have gone to work the next day. I had client friends but I was kind of burned out, and Lynn said, let's go. So
We went.
we went. And now Lynn will take over. This was on my birthday, October 28th of 1999. And we took that winter
Okay,
and spring
You're gonna
to
see
get the
some of
boat
that.
ready and get rid of everything.
and left in the,
Oh,
there, I'm sorry I didn't
oh,
go.
wait, we'll stop.
I'm sorry I didn't go back and do this in black print, so I will read it because it's hard to see. Some of the typical questions. How could you live in such a small space? Well, it was a 39-foot, the actual fact is, when you're in the cockpit, you have 100 degrees or 360-degree water view. So you have a very large space. You stretch to the horizon. Now, weren't you ever scared? A couple times, and we'll go into that. Did you ever worry about pirates? No, we did not. What did you do during a big storm? We anchored in a safe place and waited it out. Well, we might mention that too as we go along. And what did you do with all your things? We sold basically everything. We kept 5 pieces of furniture and our personal things, which David really wanted me to sell the towels, the sheets, everything. And I said, you know, A, you don't know what a set of sheets costs, and B, when we come back, nobody's having a wedding shower for us. So we kept stuff. And were we really experienced sailors? Well, we've been on the Chesapeake for 5, 6 years. So we are experienced on the Chesapeake. But okay, David, hit it. That was our house at Old Newcastle, Delaware. It was 200 years old. 11 rooms full of things. We liked our stuff. It was full of, things we collected. We had nice things we liked. Loved the house. That's the one we were going to leave behind.
And both our kids had finished college, and they were out of the house.
Yeah,
So we were free
to go. That's our boat. That's Connemara. And we kept her at Haven Harbor in Rock Hall, Maryland, which is on the eastern shore, across from Annapolis. The name came to me because I had a book club, and I don't remember the book. We were reading a book and discussing it. It was a novel. And somewhere in there it said Connemara, which is a part of Ireland, meant refuge from a troubled land. I don't know if that's true, but that's how you feel at a peaceful anchorage. So we called her Connemara. And this is like the floor plan of the boat. So when we're talking, this would have been our stateroom, small bedroom. Your feet go down here, your heads go up here. Little closet, here's the bathroom, kitchen, and then these 2 little settees, the couch, and then the cockpit. So that's the basic floor plan of a sailboat.
And that was a boat built for a cruising couple.
Yeah, for 2 people to sail on comfortably. So.
It was designed.
And David was talking about finding this boat as a liveaboard. He had a long list of what it had to have mechanically and all this kind of stuff. I needed 2 things. I needed a door to slam, and I wanted her to feel so steady that when I stepped off the dock, she didn't move. And this was a very sturdy boat, and we did have a door to the main cabin so that if the few times I slammed the door, it meant I couldn't go for a walk. We were at anchor. So it meant just leave her alone.
And I had more practical criteria. I wanted it to be able to sail with 2 people.
Yeah.
And all lines led to the cockpit. And I wanted a head or a bathroom that I could didn't have to back into.
We have
like a
pictures
lot
of that, so you'll see David's bathroom.
full-size bathroom. So then we start,
Yeah, this is Connemara before, so when we bought her, she had brown, cushioning and very beautiful inside as far as the teak and everything, but that's the way she kind of looked when we started, and then we wanted to make her a home. If we were gonna live on her, she was going to be our home. So we were gonna decorate it. This was, when we got her, I think it was an ice maker or something. Well, now it's gonna be shelves. You look for every square inch you can find. If you're gonna live on a boat. It used there, yeah, there's the ice maker, and we pulled it out, Dave put in shelves. Living aboard is very different than chartering for a week or going out for the summer. I mean, you're looking for every square inch you can to store stuff. And so then we went down to Philly and found new fabric, so I recovered all the cushions. I had a heavy-duty sewing machine at that point for canvas and stuff. So that's the new Connemara. Dave found this cabinet at Home Depot and put that in. So we had that for storage. This table, which was in the boat, right? We didn't buy that.
Oh, yeah, that was in the boat.
Though it had leaves, so it was a beautiful table. If you see a pillow like this, pillows are never just throw pillows. Inside that pillow would have been extra sheets or towels or sweatshirts. I mean, you don't just have a throw pillow. That's just another view. And something like this basket would have been, screwed down so it wasn't gonna go flipping all around.
And we added shelves all
Yeah,
around
back
with,
here,
and that rail is called a fiddle.
to keep the books from falling out and everything.
don't fall out.
And we had a little big screen TV.
Hey, I had a VCR built in.
Yeah, VCR.
Can't find those.
So this would have been going up to the cockpit, from the salon. Here's David measuring. This is our bedroom, the V-berth. He's measuring. You'll see what he built to hold all of our clothing.
Put 2 cabinets in there.
Yeah, they drop down. So 90% of our clothes, that's why you usually see me in jeans and a t-shirt. If it didn't go with khaki or blue jeans, it wasn't on the boat. And there's our quilt. So let me just hold that up for a second. Grab a corner of this. Like I said, I wanted it to be our home. So this is the boat quilt that I made. And you can see down on that sailboat, we had a leak from the hatch. So some of the fabric ran.
Big hatch on the
Yeah,
top.
yeah. But anyway, that was made it look like home. Is my kitchen and galley for a sailboat. This was a really spacious galley. There's another view coming, but again, like this basket would have been screwed down. Pictures were screwed in. We made it as personal as possible. He put this up to hold saran wrap and stuff. There was a little microwave there. We took it out. This is the refrigerator down in there. 2-burner stove. Oven, had an oven. Okay.
Which became very important.
Oh, well, yeah, because it kept us warm in some really cold times. This is where all the pots and pans were stored down in there. You'd open it up. So it was really a few spices. Again, you take salt and pepper and maybe one other spice. You're not looking for cinnamon. It's not going to happen. Our friend helped Dave make a pantry, and we had it was like 5 inches maybe, and it ended up with beautiful doors. That storage was incredible, and there wasn't another boat that we ever saw that had anything like that. So we were lucky.
We found a big pile of rough cut teak at a farm in New Jersey, and our neighbor had a full shop, and so he was, all of that teak shelving and everything we made down in his shop.
Here's Dave's bathroom. Well, anyway, a little sink, obviously medicine cabinet. He put this up to hold medication and stuff. That's a basket full of stuff. This is the shower, which usually was full of crates full of stuff. So if you did want to take a shower, you had to take everything out. So we didn't take showers very often. We learned about sponge baths. They work. Or if we were in warm water, we would do a jump shower. You soap up and jump in the water and then rinse off with a pint of fresh water. But it did have a shower. And you wanna talk a little bit, Dave, or?
Yeah, this was the,
No, you have to come over here.
looking aft to the back. This, you saw the picture with the little TV. Well, this is on the other side of the stairway that goes up to the cockpit. And so this was our office with the electric panels. And people ask, how did you navigate? Well, going down the intercoastal waterway, it's basically buoy to buoy to buoy to buoy. But what I did is back then, you didn't have chart plotters. And what I would do is I got charts on disk. And I could load them into the laptop. And then as you move the cursor around, it would give you the coordinates, the north-south coordinates, wherever you stopped it. So I would stop it at the various buoys and then enter those coordinates into a handheld GPS. And we did 7,000 miles with a GPS handheld this big. But it worked well. And
Okay.
we of course had radios and all that stuff. What do you want me to say?
Maximize storage, just keep going. On maximize storage, there were baskets there that held stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, oh, here.
We
I
had,
was in the cockpit looking for more places to put
on each
stuff.
side, they called lazarettes, and they were almost stand-up height.
This was the cockpit.
It was a cockpit from the back.
So I could sit here and lean back and read a book and look behind us, and it was very comfortable. So this is selling our stuff. We're back in our house in Delaware, and we had huge house sales. Okay.
This was the first day we truly moved aboard.
It started.
We sold the house and moved aboard in May of 2000. But we stuck around the Chesapeake and took shakedown cruises and stuff like that until the fall when we cut the lines and left.
You follow the geese, you go south. Now this just shows you again, it's different when you're gonna live aboard. This is just one load. I mean, there was load after load after load, and find a place to put it, and this is when we started drinking wine in a box. Because you take it out of the box and that bladder fits in a lot of places. Oh yeah, he's.
There's that lazarette.
We can't do that anymore.
The one winter I actually got stuck in there. I was all alone, the boat was up on jacks. And there was a generator under the helm. And to get to that, I had to go down head first and open a door. And all of a sudden, I can't get out. And
He was at the marina and I'm back in Delaware.
and nobody was around. It was me. So there she is. We added canvas.
Yeah, along here.
They're called lead cloths. And then the bimini is the white one over the top.
So we made all that canvas with that
Yeah.
special machine we had. So we did not make this, but we made a lot of the other.
We have
So I don't just
outboard,
quilt, I usually quilt.
Extra water, gasoline for the outboard. We had 100 gallons of water and 90 gallons of diesel. There was our car. That's what we used the whole time. Because we anchored out 95% of the time. We did not like going into marinas.
Well, it's free.
Plus, it's free to anchor out. There's from the mast.
Looking down, so our bedroom would have been under this lovely fresh air was coming in hatch, and then the salon was here, the galley was here, and then the cockpit. Oh,
Okay, you want to take over?
we started about here and left and followed the geese and started south.
And our first trip down, actually the
The very first day, we left
First day.
We left Rock Hall, pulled out, and it was a beautiful sailing day. We didn't know it was the tall ships weekend. And we were surrounded by these incredible ships. So, go ahead, Dave.
And the first night, we pulled into a little creek called St. Mary's at the entrance of Potomac. And up that creek is the home of St. Mary's College, which is one of the oldest colleges in the country. And we met another couple, and they said, "Oh, are you going into the movie? There was a free movie that night at the college." And guess what the movie was?
Perfect storm. Not a good one.
Cruisers look for anything free right now, I'll tell you that. So then we learned how to navigate locks. We pulled into locks, and they take a number of boats at a time. There weren't a lot of locks on the canal, but there's some, so we're pulled in. Dave, you can see all the other boats are lined up. They tie them up as many as they can.
This is down at what they call the Dismal Swamp Canal, which was actually built in Washington's time.
So we're following, Dave said we used a lot of charts, and we did, but we also followed a lot of other boats. So some of the time you don't have to think about it, you just follow the guy in front of you.
We had a flip chart that had every buoy and every anchorage for 1,000 miles to Florida. And it was just flipped.
And then there's another bridge, that's a lift bridge, so it goes up, but again, just shows people going down. David is at the helm now. This is our first trip down. Somebody asked me the year, and I said I didn't know, so it was 99?
2000.
2000, okay. Well, we left, let's say, end of September, very beginning of October, whatever it was, or middle of October. It was cold. I thought going cruising. It was cold. Keep going.
We had ice on deck a few times as far as North Carolina.
And there's other pictures. So we get to Elizabeth City, which every cruiser stops at because they always have a complimentary cocktail party as you're coming down. They know you're coming down the ICW. Keep going. So everybody's dressed.
That was my birthday.
David's birthday. But it was not what we expected. We were absolutely frigid. I'm bundled up, hiding in the cockpit as we keep going down the Neuse River. I'm still bundled up. I mean, it is freezing. Not what we expected. Okay, we're continuing. This is the Dismal Swamp. We're going through another area. Okay, this is Morehead City, one of the first stops in North Carolina. So the anchorage would be in here. All the boats would be anchored in there. Came back because somebody important got married. Here in Milwaukee, our daughter Megan and our son-in-law Michael, so we flew back for that.
We had made it down to New Bern, North Carolina, because they had direct flights to Milwaukee out of there.
And we could leave the boat, yeah.
And fortunately, we were there for like 3 weeks, because that's how far I figured we could get, in the time allotted. But we could have gone all the way down to Charleston and got to warm weather, as it turned out. But it was okay. Met some great people in New Bern.
Then we go south, and we're now in South Carolina, and this is on the chart as a safe anchorage, which we pulled in and dropped anchor. We thought, well, what's there to protect us from any wind? There's like a foot of grass, that's it. Well, when the tide goes out, you are 8 feet down. So if the storm comes through when the tide is low, you've got some protection.
In South Carolina and Georgia, there's an 8-foot tidal swell.
Which we had never seen in the Chesapeake. We had no idea what tide was.
Which
So we
you
got
have to
down
be careful when you're pulling into an anchorage, have a depth gauge, but you also have to look at a chart table to see what your depth is now and what way the tide is going. And
The friends that we mentioned who sailed around the world, they left a few years before we did. They were in South Carolina. They were used to tides. Phil didn't want to anchor where everybody else was. He wanted private, so he went across and anchored. And Janie was down below a couple hours later starting to make dinner. realizing that everything is starting to tilt. They slept, their boat was on its side. And they slept like sort of semi-standing up all night, and then the boat righted itself and it was okay. But they thought, this is why we follow the chart. Yeah, we didn't do that. We didn't have that problem. More people, these gals, or people were from the Massachusetts area. You can tell it's still warm. And we had problems with our engine, so we got towed into Charleston, because a boat is a hole in the water into which you throw lots of money.
20 miles.
And so they towed us in.
We had boat US insurance.
Go ahead. So we explored Charleston for a few days, and how many have been to Charleston? It's just a wonderful, yeah, I mean, it's really a favorite stop. It was Christmas. We were in St. Augustine. That was my 12-inch Christmas tree, which I found like at a Hallmark store. St. Augustine, we were by the Bridge of Lions.
That bridge is gone?
Yeah, I think it was torn down or maybe replaced. Visited the Space Center in Titusville. And then we were in Vero Beach, Florida, and this is where we finally found warm weather. But this is where all the boats get ready to go across to the Bahamas. So we were in Vero Beach for, several weeks. They call it Velcro Beach, because sometimes once you get there, you just never leave because it's so convenient for quilter or cruisers.
Free buses to all the stores.
Yeah, it was a really nice area. You want to talk for a few minutes and I'll do this?
One of the reasons we were there so long is we found that we had to change out all the hoses for the head that run.
Don't describe that and don't.
No, I won't describe it. Our trip almost ended there.
Oops, yeah, wait, I went back. This is Vero Beach, so
This
we're.
is Vero Beach at sunset. And I don't know where that was. Oh, that was
Still Vero Beach, Dave.
still,
Vero Beach.
okay, still Vero Beach.
More friends,
Friends from Long Island and Mystic.
Connecticut, yeah. Here we're going.
Here's our coming into the dinghy dock.
This is still Vero Beach, all the anchorage, all the cruisers waiting. And
Look at all the boats.
That's where you park.
So from Vero Beach, you go down to West Palm. I forget the name of the big lake there, where you wait for a weather window to go to the Bahamas. And you should never go to the Bahamas if there has been a north wind or a northeast wind. And you have to wait like 2 days after that wind before you cross to the Bahamas, because the wind opposes a Gulf Stream and it builds up gigantic waves.
And somebody told us we'd go to the show, we'd walk from the Vero Beach anchorage over to the Atlantic to look. If you could see elephants on the horizon, you didn't go. And that meant they were literally square waves, and you could see them. That meant tide against wind, don't cross. So you do not go when the elephants are running.
And we were newbies, so we met a couple that had been over many times, and we followed them.
Like, you know.
And we were coming out of the inlet, and it was really rough. And I go, oh my God, it's going to be like this. And they said, no, as soon as we get past the inlet, it'll flatten out. And it did. No wind at all the way across.
We motored all the way to the Bahamas.
Bahamas.
It was beautiful,
But
but yes,
there's sunrise.
serendipity is out in the front of us. We just followed them. So now we're in the Abacos.
The Abacos are the circle of islands in the north of the Bahamas.
Yeah. Take the car to shore. Yeah. Lots of shells. How many have been to the Bahamas? Well, or islands, you know. We explored
New Plymouth.
Hopetown.
This is Elbow Key, which a couple of years ago, I forget the hurricane, just wiped out
Decimated.
Marsh Harbor and a lot of the Avicos, and Elbow Key is a long skinny island. That's a fairly famous
Honey, use the mic.
fairly famous lighthouse. That survived, but virtually every property on the island was flattened.
Damaged or flattened. My cousin had a house there, and it's gone.
And here's
That's
the
the
anchorage, and that's us right in the middle. You can see the blue lee cloths.
And this is my cousin, Claudia, and her husband, Rob, and her daughter, and her son, and we were visiting them at their house in the Abacos, which is now gone, and the whole house is gone. And Rob had built this to withstand hurricanes. He looked at the trees around and saw the angle of the trees. He built the roof line and everything to echo those trees, and so his house made it through a number of bad storms. You know, they might get window damage and stuff, but the wind would go right through. Not this time, it just wiped out the house. Yeah, so, more friends.
And these friends, we sailed with them a long time. They're from Green Bay.
Yeah. Lizard. These guys were from California, yep. And I don't know if you can see it, right here, we were snorkeling. Here's an eagle ray, the dots right here. Beautiful, he had about a six foot wingspan, beautiful. Marsh Harbor.
We were stuck in Marsh Harbor, which is a pretty big harbor, for 4 days. We had 35 knot winds, steady, for 4 days. We rearranged everything on the boat. You know, we couldn't get it in the dinghy because it was too rough.
Well, we wanted to watch the anchor too. We didn't want to
Yeah,
drag.
we didn't want to drag.
We read books, we played games, we rearranged everything. 4 days, and it got calm. And within half an hour, every dinghy in that marina was
To shore.
to shore. The
Nearest
women were,
bar.
get us off of here. Oh, yeah, if we had had to live on the fish Dave caught for 2 years, we would have starved. Didn't work.
Some of these are out of order.
Oh, this is one of our favorite stops for you.
Yeah, coming back up off the coast of Georgia is Cumberland Island. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that.
That's
It's
where John F. Kennedy Jr. was married.
buried in
That
that
little
little
chapel was on Cumberland Island.
Cumberland Island, and it's, you expect to see a dinosaur come out of the palmettos, and then you go across the island, and it's not very wide. And there are wild horses, and then a beautiful dune area, and the longest, whitest beach I'd ever seen in my life. Just beautiful.
It's a protected national seashore now. I think the beach is like 11 miles by maybe the island is a mile or so. At the north end is a little tiny community, and the people who own those properties are grandfathered in, but when they die, those revert to the, the national trust. And on the south end were some huge mansions which are no longer inhabited. So the only thing on the island was this little chapel and a very private club. David did check into having dinner there because it might have been an anniversary or something, and we didn't go. Too expensive.
Too private. Too expensive.
Well, and they said we had to take the dinghy up to there, and then we couldn't have a cocktail. We had to sit right down for dinner, and then leave.
And it was like $100 each or something. But this is the beach on Cumberland Island. It's just amazing. If you ever get a chance to go, you'd never know you're on the east coast of the United States. Never. Okay, this is Beaufort or Buford?
I always forget which one is.
Beaufort?
Beaufort
And
is the
anchorage
south.
out
Beaufort.
here.
No, beautiful Beaufort.
Beaufort, yes, Beaufort. This is the anchorage out here. And then we're back in the Chesapeake. We're going through the C&D Canal. We're now headed up to New England. So we're coming through the canal.
So the C&D Canal connects, you go up the Delaware River, then the canal cuts across, you go up the Chesapeake, then it's maybe 20 miles across the C&D Canal into the Delaware River, Then you go south a little bit and go through the Cape, or the
Atlantic, you go around
Atlantic
Atlantic
City
City.
Canal, and then you head up the Jersey coast to go up.
So this is Atlantic City, we
That's
were
Atlantic
outside
City.
Atlantic
Is
City.
that Trump's place?
Well, yeah,
I know coming
Never
back,
mind.
we anchored right off there.
and then we anchored near, behind the Statue of Liberty, which was just, you know. you
Near
think,
the
"Oh."
New Liberty Park.
Yeah,
It's
that was
not
beautiful.
new,
And we're gonna go up the East River, because Dave used to work in New York City, and we thought, oh, what fun to see New York from the river instead of, you know, train or whatever. So we did,
but, and you'll notice
And
two
see
towers.
anything? To the left. And it was a very gray day, so we thought, okay, on the way back, we'll get some better pictures. Blue sky. But we went up the,
Story to follow. And you go up the East River and go through what they call Hell's Gate into Long Island Sound, which is on the inside of Long Island, between Connecticut. And you have to go with the tide, because it just rushes like it's 6-7 knots through Hell's Gate. And at one time, we were going like 12 knots. Normal speed is 6. So over the ground.
and these are friends from Connecticut. They were gonna go ashore, go back home, and we gave them mail, so they came over in their boat with their little fishing net. And we put our mail in their fishing net so they could take it to the post office.
This poor couple, they ended up staying in Florida. They had so many mechanical problems with their old boat, and they ended up not going to the Bahamas.
And we were in Sag Harbor, Long Island. There's the acreage up in the corner. It's really interesting to come, part of the thing that fascinated me over the 2 years is to come into a small town or a city, a Baltimore or whatever, on the water instead of driving in. I mean, it is just, you're coming in slow, you've got a whole different view. It's just a fascinating look at America from a different viewpoint.
So then we go up through Long Island Sound, and we went to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and
Good sail.
yeah, had a good sail.
Now that would have meant I was at the helm. Notice the boat is perfectly tipped and the wind is perfect. The rule was, normally Dave was the captain. Whoever was at the helm was the captain. Because if you were controlling that boat and you saw that for some reason you had to, change course, you didn't discuss it with anybody. You just did it because you didn't have much time to make a mistake. But David was normally at the helm, and then I was down in the galley or whatever, or reading a book. And then when I was at the helm, I was the captain. So for this shot, I must have been the captain. And then we were in Nantucket, where we had more boat problems, which we won't go into all that. We're headed for Boston area we were going to take care of our grandson when our second grandson was going to be born. And we got this call from Todd saying, hurry, because Kelly's starting to dilate. And I said, Todd, this boat only goes like 30 miles a day. I can't. So we left Nantucket after visiting with friends and friends and college friends. Got up there, and then we waited like 2 weeks. But little Aiden finally decided to arrive, so we were there to help with Alex. But yeah, And then Megan and Michael came over to meet their new nephew and to see us. So that was still up in Boston area, north of Boston. Who's ever read Anita Shreve's The Weight of Water? Takes place on Smutty Nose Island. So we anchored at Smutty Nose and went ashore and hiked across to this cave, which is part of the story. So that was really cool.
Right off the coast.
Very small
Southern
island.
New Hampshire, where New
Very
Hampshire
small
sticks out
island.
into the Atlantic.
Again, New England, certainly different than Bahamas. Lots of rock and lots of different terrain. We were a lot younger and a lot skinnier. That's starting to get hard to share these memories. those clothes are gone. But this is an island in Maine, so what a difference from the Bahamas. I mean, you know. And then we were in Maine. This is Casco Bay and Booth Bay Harbor. Again, you've probably been up to New England, but coming in from the water, it's just really interesting to see these towns. And David finally got his
Lobster fix. Lobster.
lobster, yeah. I think I had a hamburger. I don't like to have to rip things apart to eat them. Richmond Island, Maine. We anchored there for several days, very quiet. I think we were probably the only boat there. But
Right
it
off
was
of
lovely.
Portsmouth,
Lovely.
Maine.
Yeah, and walked around the island. We're going to be heading south pretty soon because again, you're going to follow the geese. You don't want to get caught. That has to do with hurricane season. So we're starting to think about pointing our nose south again. We stopped in Rockport again and we're going south. Block Island, this is where, well, why don't you tell them what happened?
We had come through the Cape.
Dave, here.
We had come through the Cape Cod Canal and we're anchored in a little town called Onset on 9/11. And we turned the TV off at 8:30 and took off across Buzzards Bay.
Beautiful
And-
sail,
and-
incredible.
Again, one of the best sails, and you don't have a lot of good sails when you're cruising. And pulled into South Dartmouth, Mass, and took the dinghy into shore, and I was in a little tiny grocery store with one checkout lane, and I hear Bush on the radio saying, "And we will take steps to make sure this never happens again." And I turned to the gal, I said, "What is he talking about?"
Here's the mic.
And they said, "Where the hell have you been?" I said, "Well, we just sailed across, She said 2 terrorist planes have hit the trade centers and they both collapsed, and they think 3,000 people died. And I said, I worked a block from the trade center in the early 70s, and I said, man, there's 50,000 people that work in that complex. So I jumped in the dinghy and I ran back out to the boat, and I said, Lynn, get the TV on. And it was like a replay. Plane 1, tower down, plane 2, tower down. It didn't show that hour and a half between the two. And I thought, holy cow, there's got to be more than 3,000 people. So it was a miracle they got that many people out of there.
Yeah, and we met people who, obviously then you're now talking about this, we met people from Canada who've been coming down the Hudson River. And as plane 1 came in, and she just said to her husband, boy, they let planes fly low over New York City as it went into the tower. So anyway, we are now waiting at Block Island because they've closed the East River. We can't go that way. So we waited at Block Island for 2 or 3 days, and then we had a wonderful weather window and an incredible sail overnight from Block Island to Atlantic City. So it was perfect conditions, perfect wind. There were so few tankers and stuff. There were no boats out there while everything had stopped. So we were very fortunate to be able to do it. So now we start our second year, where the first year out you're called a firstie because you don't know what you're doing. So now we don't have to follow the chart quite as, step
It
by
was like
step.
connect the dots. We had lines with magic marker going booey,
Yeah,
booey, booey.
now we can sort of look around and get ourselves there. So we start down, and this is us tied up in Portsmouth, Virginia. Free dockage. We ran into an art fair that day, that weekend. That was fun. Again, walking around. This was David's 55th birthday, so he's celebrating a float. I must have baked something in that little oven. And then back down to North Carolina, there's the anchorage where, you would stay off the side of town. This was nice because you could get into town. I think this is where the marina had a free car you could use to take to grocery stores and stuff. Yeah, loaner, so that was great. Carolina Beach, North Carolina. This is called Barefoot Landing in Myrtle Beach. And it's free dockage. Everybody ties up there, and then you tie up to a boat next to you so that you can walk across each other. But it's a shopping mall with restaurants and a beauty parlor, and so you can go in there and get everything that you figured you might need, and it's free. So then all the cruisers really love it. There was a fire across the canal, and we're watching this, coming toward us, thinking, well, the canal's about 40 feet wide, 50 feet wide. But we thought, well, we really don't have any place to go. But luckily, they got it under control. Now we're back in Charleston, and I'll just do this very briefly. Charleston, somehow we love it, and we always have huge boat problems there. Well, we dropped anchor, and our routine was, I'd be at the helm, David would be up at the bow dropping the anchor, and he'd give me the signals to back down on the anchor, whatever I was supposed to do. Well, he's giving me the signals, and I'm trying to back down, and nothing's happening.
In reverse.
So we know the anchor's on the bottom, but we haven't pulled it. It's not set. So I get on the radio and call the marina office, and they said, well, you better get some help. There's nobody here we can send out. And see that bridge over there? He's pointing. You have a half an hour till the tide changes, and if you don't get your anchor set, you're going to be in that bridge. So I said to David, get in the dinghy and go make some friends. So he comes back with like 3 dinghies. They pulled us to a mooring boat. So we were safe, and then we paid more money to get out of
We got towed
Charleston.
out of Charleston to get to a marina that the drivetrain came apart.
So we're exploring Charleston again. Wait, I've got a picture of that. Just a minute.
Okay.
So we're exploring Charleston, having a wonderful time, being towed out. Those are the same guys that towed us the year before, and they didn't believe me, but I had their picture. Yeah, we spent more money than we.
Boat US took it again.
Now we're going down after getting the boat fixed, and there's a submarine. Can you see it on the right? The Coast Guard vessel comes up with a big bullhorn telling everybody, get out of the way, get out of the way. Well, you have to stay in the channel or you can run aground. So we're like, well, then we went over to the side, and this submarine was coming back from the Atlantic and going back to port. So that was kind of fun. Again, we're on Cumberland Island for Thanksgiving, all the shorebirds, armadillo, it's exotic. And that's one of the mansions on the south end that's just, deserted for years and years, but we hiked all around the island and had a potluck Thanksgiving dinner. Everybody in the anchorage brought something, and we never had any problem eating well. And then we're back at Fernandina Beach, Florida. We're headed south still. We saw a shuttle launch. I don't know if you can see in the middle. There's some light. We saw a shuttle go up. That was kind of fun. And there's a manatee. I don't know if you can see, his mouth is by the hose. He's on his back, so he's drinking water. Yeah. Another anchorage, but so peaceful. It was just lovely. Then Megan and Mike came down to visit us as we headed for the Keys.
We were in Miami.
Yeah, they flew into Miami.
And you anchor right in the causeways between the highways, right in downtown Miami. Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah.
You anchor right in the causeways. There's like 5 bridges right in Miami.
They learned to use our dinghy, so they had a good time. Made breakfast. That's a Martha Stewart apple pancake. And then we go through the Keys. So we just went all the way down to Key West, anchoring along the way and stopping along the way. We had thought about going back to the Bahamas again, but I don't know, we just didn't. Oh, my brother-in-law is there swimming with Dave. Another anchorage. Oh, this was in Key West, and the anchorage was, sort of around the bottom of the last little key, and the tide would come in, and it was opposite the current, and so twice a day, that boat would be rocking and rolling. It would literally throw you, if you were lying down on the settee, throw you on the floor. So we got off basically twice a day and just let the tide change and then came back in. Lots of cats around Key West, and they all have 5 or 6 toes or something. Something about Hemingway, I forget what the story is. And a lot of chickens running around everywhere. It's fun. They go under your table when you're eating lunch. Oh, and this was a good one. Like I said, cruisers like free stuff. This was where all the cruise ships would dock. It's a key lime store, pies and jelly and whatever. Well, they always had a bowl of cookies for sample. So every day we would go in and browse the shelves and each have 5 or 6 cookies and then leave. And that's the top of La Concha Hotel in Key West. So you can really see the whole, it was a fun city to visit. We enjoyed it. My sister and brother-in-law and niece came down to find us way at the bottom. And then we are at Marathon Key for a few days, anchored with friends. This is what you did in the evening. You gather on somebody's boat. You'd all bring your own drink, whatever it was, because you don't stock a full bar on a boat. So you bring what you want to drink, and then you share some kind of little snack and talk and share. And somebody I was talking to here, pink talk and blue talk. The women would tend to talk about, get the dinghy to shore, where's the laundromat, where's the nearest grocery store, here's an easy recipe, and the men are talking about anchors and diesel mechanics, so that's blue talk and pink talk.
But you can get an idea how big that cockpit is. It was 7.5 feet long, and there were 8 people there. And so you could sleep out there on the cushions if you wanted.
Lignum Vitae Key State Park, that's another little state park we walked around. Boy, you look skinny there. Let's see the angle.
It was the angle.
And he caught a fish. It was a shark.
What did you do with him?
Threw him back.
Ah.
This
This was one of the best sails, right up the Keys. A friend took
We went
pictures
from
for
Key
us.
West all the way around up to Miami. Basically one tack.
Yeah, she was a beautiful, when she was under sail, and that noise, you hear the dinghy behind you, it's hard to explain if you haven't been in it. Another Anchorage, Bahia Honda is a state park, the Keys,
Right in the middle of the Keys.
yeah. There we are with the blue anchored out there, yeah.
That's the first place we saw pelicans roosting in trees.
I didn't realize they did that.
I thought they were.
You know, you have to wash the bottom of the dinghy every once in a while, because it does get, full of stuff, crap, whatever, I don't know. Now we're going north.
We're headed back to the Chesapeake, so we're heading back through Miami. And then you're going right through Miami, so you're watching it from your little cockpit. Back to Vero Beach. So the marina, you can see it at the top, under the beach word, that's where all the boats were. And when we walked 3 or 4 blocks over to the beach, the sand, that's where we would look for the elephants that year we were going to be crossing. But it was a very handy little city for cruisers. Another stop at Cumberland Island. It was really one of my favorite stops. We've been 4 times we stopped. Biking, we had fold-up bikes that we used for a while. Bought them at a garage sale on the way. Georgetown, there's the Anchorage for South Carolina. So you can see the anchorages along, if you're following the Intercoastal Waterway and the guides, purposely pick places where you can get to things,
Right.
It's not always just totally isolated and the two of you talking to each other, which is how we preserve the marriage. We could get off the boat and talk to somebody else.
If you're not familiar with the Intercoastal, it's a series of rivers and canals and like open bays that go all the way. You can stay inland all the way from southern New Jersey all the way down to Florida. And then there's an area from the middle of New Jersey up to where you enter New York Harbor, where you do have to go outside. But
Not much.
you can stay inside, not go out on the Atlantic. And people used to ask us, well, why don't you just go outside and go all the way to Florida, and there are people that do that, but you have to figure in the fall, 50 miles is a good day. That's a good long day, because it gets dark at 4 o'clock, and you want to be in a safe anchorage before that. And to go outside, you have to go out through an inlet and then go south and then come all the way back into the intercoastal, and it really doesn't, it doesn't pick up that much time, so.
Well, but people who do that often don't come in every night, they just sail, overnight, so they just keep going. So another stop was we stayed in New Bern for a number of months on the way back up, and Dave worked at Home Depot and I worked in a real estate office for a little while, and then we came home.
That's where we decided that we were gonna end it.
We knew we had to stop, so we were headed now back to the Chesapeake, put her on the market, up for sale in Annapolis, which was of course bittersweet, but then random memories, I'll just share a couple. We were anchored in Mile Hammock Bay, which is, I think, one of the Carolinas, I don't remember.
Camp Lejeune.
Camp Lejeune, and maybe 8 boats. Beautiful little anchorage, totally protected. And we had gone to somebody's boat for cocktails, and then we're back on our boat, and all of a sudden we heard bagpipes. And I turn around, and there's a guy on the bow of his sailboat playing the bagpipes as the sun went down. It was just beautiful. We talked about getting stuck at Marsh Harbor. Oh, catching fish. We were in Toulouse Pond in the Bahamas, and it was a safe anchorage because we knew a storm was coming. There were like 3 boats, let's say. Anyway, long story short, they were at our boat for cocktails, and they're going back. Now it's dark, and I'm shining a flashlight down so they can safely climb down and get in their dinghies. And we see lots of fish activity. And somebody said, "Oh my gosh, the snappers, start fishing." And we didn't have any bait. They said, use noodles. And so we used uncooked ziti noodles, and we caught
7.
Everybody caught red snapper. The next night we had the best fresh fish. So if you're ever stuck somewhere and you don't have bait, we didn't know that. Okay, the other thing was going through the Cape Cod Canal when we were headed north. Dave was at the helm, so I'm reading. So I'm watching behind us, and you're going from a pretty big body of water into a really narrow canal to get through to the Atlantic.
With the current.
And as you're doing this, the waves are building up behind you. It's not that it's dangerous, but they are really building up, and I'm looking at them. They are now like over Dave's head as it's pushing us into this canal. And I just said, just don't turn around. We're fine, just keep going.
I could feel the boat go.
He's gonna absolutely panic. Anyway, we had the overnight sails. There were only a couple, and we did 3-hour chunks. He'd be at the helm for 3 hours, and I'd try to sleep or rest. And then I'd take the helm for 3 hours, and he'd try to sleep or rest. We didn't do that very often, but you just didn't put it on automatic pilot and go down below. We don't own the sailboat anymore, but we've covered them elsewhere in the. We now have the little camper that you guys have seen. This is our first one, the Road Trek. But now we have a different one. So we don't sail, but you can't sail to Yellowstone or Glacier or any of those other places. So and we're still married. Dave is gonna, now everybody plug your ears if you don't like loud noises. This is what cruisers do at sunset. So we found this in the Bahamas, this conch shell. But now cover your ears if you don't like really weird, odd noises, big noises. Everybody would be doing that all over the... Oh yeah, we could do that too. For dinner, we'll do that for dinner. David, just hold up this notebook for a minute. Every night I kept a log, and so my log would be where we'd gone that day, what we did, what I'd made for dinner, whatever. He had his own log, but it was all the, all the mechanical stuff and all that. But that's proof that we went somewhere, and I collect things along the way, little maps, little brochures and stuff. And those are boat cards on the front. Everybody had a business card, but it was your boat card. And that's how you kept track of people, because you trade boat cards. And yeah, it was just something, so there again. And that Dave's got underneath the shell, my friend made me this pillow, and it's the signal flags, but we had 3 boats, so it's each boat. But
This
again,
was our first one.
yeah. and then
Sunrise was the second one. and
Connemara. But that one was probably full of pillowcases or a sweatshirt or something. It was not a pillow. So, does anybody have any questions?
What was the draft of your boat?
I'm sorry?
The
Draft. What was the draft?
What draft?
The draft of the boat. 6 feet?
Just over 4 feet.
Oh, 4 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else?
4, 6.
What
Lori?
does that mean?
How-
What do you feel is the percentage that you would under sales navigation motor?
Maybe 10% is high for sailing.
We might have had 12 good sails in 2 years. Because if you want to go from point A to point B down the ICW, the wind is generally not going the right way. It's very narrow. You're motoring. But, we love turning it off.
We motor sailed a lot. We put up the head sail and the
Absolutely.
motor,
Yeah.
Steady support.
and that would give us a couple extra knots.
But sailing didn't happen very often. And somebody asked one, and many people say, were you ever afraid? There were a couple of nights where we felt in a safe anchorage, and we knew our anchor was set. But the wind would, the boat would be rocking and rolling, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be sitting there probably in tears thinking, what the hell am I doing here? And then I'd think, okay, we're in 12 feet of water, and if the boat sinks, I'll just hold on to the mast until morning, and then I feel a little bit better. Because this was not something that was ever part of really either of our growing up experiences, a little bit of sailing, not much. I mean, no, if anybody had ever told us that we were going to do this, we would have said, well, we're never going to have a sailboat, and heaven forbid we would never live on one and sell all of our stuff. I mean, that was...
One slide with Taloo Pond, and where we caught the fish. It was a very narrow thing between a point of land and mangrove forest, and then the ocean was right on the other side of that. And we knew a storm was coming, and we had 65-mile-an-hour winds all night. And your concern there is that you're going to drag your anchor and go ashore. So, we do anchor watch. I mean, you take 2-hour shifts and you sit in the cockpit and focus on 2 things. And, there was a little sailboat on the beach over here, and I swore that was getting closer and closer all night. But we made it through.
Yeah, Caroline.
So you were a sewer, of course, and you had a machine for canvas and a machine for quilting.
Oh, no, not on the boat. I only had the red one you saw for canvas. I didn't bring any of the fabric or anything. In fact, Dave wanted me to sell all my quilting fabric, and I said, excuse me, you know how long it took to find that piece of yellow? I left all that, but I made a couple of baby quilts using that machine because, babies were coming, but I didn't quilt.
So when did you do all the upholstery?
That was before we sold the house. That was back in the house, yeah.
Gorgeous
Yeah.
job.
Judy?
So we sold a lot of, she sewed a lot of canvas for the boat.
Yeah.
And
Before
we ended
we
up making a
left.
full enclosure for the cockpit.
Do you ever get seasick?
I didn't. David had a tendency sometimes to feel it more than me, but he just took it Dramamine very, very seldom. There was only one time for me on the Chesapeake, this is before we lived aboard, and I think it might have been Connemara, I forget. We were going to meet our sailing club, for an evening. Oh, that's me.
We were sailing downwind, so the wind was directly behind us, and you tend to go like this. And Lynn looked at me and said, change tack. Now.
I was suddenly feeling really sick, which had never happened, and I said, you gotta change tack. He said, well, no, we need to go that way. I said, no. You're gonna have to do this a few times, because if you keep doing this, you're gonna be really sorry. Anybody else have any questions? Lori?
Before you first started out, are there any regulations, like as far as instruction, licensure to take this boat out?
Nope. Nope. We had the weekend sailing class and then sailed on the Chesapeake with people, and good friends gave us advice, but No.
Did you ever beat the Coast Guard?
Yes, we did. In fact, we were headed to an anchorage, and I think weather, it was getting dark, so we're going down this, I forget where we were, but this big powerboat had gone by and threw a huge wake, which usually they will slow down for a sailboat and be, this guy just, so we were so, things are flying, and we see a Coast Guard boat coming, and we thought, great, he's gonna go. Well, he stopped another boat, then he came over to us, and we thought he was gonna say, is everything okay? No, they had Coast Guard trainees on board, and they wanted to bring them on board just to sort of check things.
We're trying to get into this.
Well,
That's all right,
it was-
you keep going.
Yeah, it worked out, but it was like they weren't here to tell us they were gonna get that guy at all. They were just training somebody. Richard,
When you set out, did you have a mindset of how long you would be gone, like 6 months, a year?
no, I think we kind of thought about 2 years.
So you had that in mind?
That was, yeah.
It did last 2 years.
Yeah, we kind of thought, and after the end of the first year, we did have a discussion about, has this been enough? Should we go back down to the, Florida, whatever? And 9/11 happened, and we both said, I think we want to do it one more year, because I didn't want to, neither one of us, we were so fortunate to be able to do this, and we thought, we don't want to end up being, 90 looking back thinking we could have done this and we didn't. So we kept going, but we knew 2 years.
That was our motivation.
We had to come back to
in the
work
very
and
first
stuff.
place that we said, when I had to decide, go back to work or do we take off? We said, we can always come back and make money, I don't want to be 80. and
No
look
offense
back.
to anybody.
No offense to,
Yeah.
but, we didn't want to have to look back and say, boy, we had a chance to do this, I wish we had done it. So we did.
Did the expenses fall within your predictions? You figured you'd last for a couple of years?
Yeah.
Well, remember what happened in the stock market in 2001?
Yeah. We were fine. I think the expenses were pretty much what we thought, except when we ran into, major boat problems, but it was fine. You can live on a boat real cheaply if you own the boat, and because there's so many expenses you're leaving behind. You don't have electricity, you don't have car, you don't have property insurance. You can live pretty economically, but yeah, we figured we could afford to do it for 2 years, and then we came back to work. So we were lucky to be able to do it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How much of a bath did you take buying and then selling the boat?
We sold it for less than we bought it.
Well, when you buy a boat for X, and then hopefully if you own it 5 to 10 years, you put another X into it, then when you sell it, you hope to get 1X back.
Yeah, we sold it for less, but again, the experience and everything, we never could have afforded to do this any other way. Just take 2 years and travel and stay in hotels or whatever. We wouldn't have wanted to do that. And whereas the little RV now, they sell for more than we buy them for. Right now. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, anything else?
Fascinating.
Sandra?
Did you spend every night of that 2 years on board, or did you ever, when you were somewhere a little longer, to a hotel with a real shower?
We never went to a hotel.
No.
You did. You were on board the whole 2 years.
Yeah, I think we might have visited his mom or something once. I don't think, no, we were on board. It was, no, we
Yeah,
didn't.
remember when we went up Long Island Sound, we did anchor the boat in the Connecticut River, and I went up to see my mom in Springfield, Mass, and you flew out to see
Oh,
your
I went to
mom?
see my, and the wedding weekend, so we had
Yeah.
I take it back.
But that's,
Mainly on the
and we only went into marinas
Maybe 10 times in 2 years.
10 times in 2 years.
But you stayed at some of your place moorings a long time.
Yeah, Vero Beach, we were there for weeks. Marsh Harbor, probably a week, yeah. Most of them was overnight or maybe 2 nights. But, we got stuck in Vero Beach. Everybody does.
No cruises.
Not a bad place.
No, it's pretty nice. Anything else? Thank you for Gil.
Were you tempted at all to go to the Caribbean?
I wanted to go to Cuba.
Croatia, no, you.
David didn't really want to do it when we were in the Keys, and then I had set my, what do they call it, a PVD. It's not a venereal disease. It's a vitriol detachment in my, which I thought, what is
We were in
that?
Key West, and there were some other boats that were gonna go to Cuba, and we were seriously thinking of doing it.
But I had that thing happen, so I went to an eye doctor, and then we thought, well, maybe we better
When
get
did
back
she
up.
have,
Yeah, part of the retina. It wasn't, it wasn't a huge tear, but anyway, so we didn't get to do that. We've flown down and chartered in the Virgins and Belize and met our friends who went around the world in several places, cruised with them, but not our own boat, no. No pirates, we were fine.
Thank you so much.